I never imagined that a quiet woman could outshine a famous violinist, leaving us all in tears. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The theatre buzzed with excitement, the air thick with anticipation. I sat in the third row, heart racing, eyes glued to the stage. There he was, Marco Marino, the prodigy. The room fell silent as he raised his bow to play. His hands moved like flames, painting melodies that danced in the air. But then, everything changed. I in the back, unassuming and barely noticed, stood Lila. She melted into the shadows, her brown hair a curtain hiding her face. I had only seen her at the fringes of our group, a ghost at parties, always smiling but never speaking. I felt the electric pull of her presence that night. While Marco played, she stood, hands trembling at her sides. The audience didn't know her story. They didn't know how she had given up everything for her dreams, practicing alone in a dim room, every night filled with tears and shattered hopes. Suddenly, Marco's string screeched. A mistake. His confident facade cracked, and whispers danced across the audience like a fire. Lila looked from him to the stage, eyes wide with empathy. Her heart was racing with a different kind of intensity. What was she thinking? I leaned forward, sensing something unfolding. With a breathless determination, Lila emerged from the shadows. The spotlight flickered, as if it sensed the shift in energy. She made her way to the front, trembling fingers brushing her bow. I couldn't breathe, senses overwhelmed by the moment. Marco's frown deepened. How dare she, but when she began to play, it was like a spell. Each note poured from her soul, raw and unfiltered. The violin sang a mournful song, a loss we all understood. The audience gasped, tears streaming down faces. Marco watched, bewildered, unable to compete with the depth of her despair. The air crackled with tension. We collectively held our breaths, lost in the haunting beauty. Every heartbeat felt stolen, like a thief in the night. There was sacrifice in her sound, it tugged at heartstrings we didn't even know existed. Then it happened. The music warped, time stretched. A silence enveloped us. A feeling of impending doom settled in my stomach. I glanced at Marco, his perfect smile turned into a mask of fury, but Lila was in a trance, eyes glistening with pain. The moment shattered as she struck the final note, and with it, we were left in stunned silence. Her gaze caught mine, vulnerability shining through. A question loomed in the stillness: what was she going to do next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The theatre erupted into applause, but the sound felt distorted, an echo of the tumult swirling in my heart. Lila stood before us, trembling and raw from the emotional upheaval she had just unleashed. I could see the glisten of unshed tears forming in her eyes, while the incredulity washed over the audience like a tide pushing against the shore. Marco's expression transformed, fury mixing with the shame creeping into his cheeks. A hush fell over the room the moment Lila stepped back, a quiet intensity taking hold as though a pact was formed. She met my gaze again, and I lowered my eyes, suddenly feeling complicit in her battles, the weight of her silent struggles pressing against my skin. What had she stepped into, and how would she fit in this world that felt so unforgiving? Marco's glare burned into Lila's back as she all but fled the stage. I felt an instinctive need to follow, to ensure she was all right. I pushed past the throngs of stunned audience members, each one caught in their revelry, but I was lost in the gravity of her unquiet heart. As I exited the theatre, the cool night air hit me, the stars twinkling with indifferent cheer above. I found Lila sitting on a stone bench just outside, shaking as sobs racked her frame. "Lila," I whispered, slowly approaching her. She didn't respond at first, focused intensely on the ground, the quiet wooden bench a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos back inside. "Hey," I continued softly, not wanting to startle her. Are you okay? She glanced up, cheek stained with tears, and I felt a pang of something more recognition of her struggles, perhaps. I didn't mean to. I just had to. The admission hung there, fragile. You had to what? Show him, show everyone. She inhaled deeply, trying to find steadiness in her voice. That music isn't just about perfection. It's about pain and longing and truth. My heart ached. I had always thought of music as a refuge, a means of escape. But she talked about it like it was a life source, as if without it, she would wither away. There was a raw thread connecting us. Her quiet determination pulled at my insides. Just then, the back door swung open, and Marco stumbled out, breathless, cheeks flushed with annoyance. Eyes darting between us, he unleashed a harsh laugh, one void of humor. What was that? A pity performance? Lila flinched as if he had struck her. I stepped forward, feeling the need to shield her, to protect her from his venomous words. You need to leave her alone, Marco. Oh, come on. You think that was talent? Marco scoffed, the sting in his words deepening. But something flickered in his eyes. Vulnerability? Fear? Maybe both. She made a fool of herself up there. No, I countered, my voice strong. You were the one who faltered, not her. Don't twist this into something it's not. The air chilled between us, tension spiraling and thickening like fog. Lila remained silent beside me, but I could feel her trembling even more. Without warning, Marco's expression shifted, revealing a flash of something almost desperatian admission lurking beneath his bravado. What do you know about music? His voice dropped, a challenging murmur. What gives you the right to defend her? More than you realize, I shot back. I know what it means to fight for your passion, what it means to lose everything while chasing a dream. I had never spoken such things aloud, but it felt liberating. And as I said it, I could sense Lila turning towards me, her eyes wide with an unexpected glimmer of hope. Just when I thought Marco might throw venomous words our way, his demeanor shifted, and guilt danced in the back of his eyes. Whatever. He turned sharply and bolted back inside. Once he was gone, the silence lingered, heavy but not entirely unwelcome. I turned to Lila. I'm sorry you had to go through that. He doesn't understand. But she barely heard me. Her gaze shifted to the stars, as if seeking something. Do you think he'll ever belong? I opened my mouth but struggled to form a reply. The question carried a weight so heavy it almost sunk us both into despair. But before I could answer, Lila's expression transformed, eyes widening with a sudden realization. I need to see the world. What do you mean? She turned to me, her voice barely a breath. I need to find my sound, to compose my life away from here. There are places where music is made from grief, where I can finally be free to be me. I swallowed hard, the thought of losing her to the unknown chilling me deeper than I expected. But Lila, what if you never come back? A shadow crossed her face, and her sparkle dimmed. What if I stay and always feel like this? Like a shadow? Before I could reassure her, the theater doors swung open again, but this time it wasn't Marco. An older man stepped out, eyes full of kindness but carrying an air of authority. He approached us, casting an appraising glance at Lila. I couldn't help but overhear. You play beautifully, my dear. Come with me. I can help you. Lila looked between the man and me, doubt swirling in her hazel eyes. In that moment, I realized that both hope and fear intertwined within her heart, and she stood on a precipice, unsure of the leap before her. As the man extended his hand toward Lila, everything stood still, waiting for her decision, but in the depths of my chest, something crucial shivered. This could change everything. The night air vibrated with anticipation, both heavy and electric, as Lila stared at the older man, his hand still outstretched. I could hardly breathe, sensing the potential fork in our lives unfolding in front of us. Here was a chance, so tantalizingly close, yet it felt like a rift growing between us. Please, Lila, I urged, my heart rising in my throat. Think about it. What do you really want? Her lips trembled, unsure, and for a moment, I saw her reeling in the struggle between safety and the yearning gnawing at her core. She began, but her voice faltered as she glanced toward the man, a flicker of excitement igniting in her eyes. Your gift deserves to be shared, he encouraged gently, eyes warm with understanding. The world is waiting for your music, Lila. You can shape it however you want. The idea took root in her mind, a dream she hadn't dared to voice yet, a world where she could find herself without the stifling weight of judgment hovering over every note she played. But the bond we shared pulled at her like a tether. I could see it in her expression, a storm of possibilities and fears swirling. It's not just about me leaving, she whispered, glancing back at me. What if I lose you, too? Sometimes, to find what you love, you have to let go. I forced the words out, my own heart aching with the weight of them. I dared not show the vulnerability wrestling within, it felt too fragile in the face of her determination. But you don't understand, she pressed, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. What if I'm not good enough? What if before she could finish, the older man cut in, you won't know unless you try. Every artist has doubt, it's how you rise above it that defines who you are. You have a chance here. Don't disregard it. A fissure of tension stretched between us, and for an instant, I felt her pulling away, the way the tide lifts a stone from the shore. I was terrified, wanting to scream for her to stay, yet knowing deep down, her liberation lay just beyond my reach. Lila, I trailed off, the sound of her name like a prayer caught in my throat, but she took a step back from him, hesitating. I don't want to do this alone, she breathed, heartbreak threading through her voice. I thought we were on this journey together. Inside, I wrestled with the dual desire to see her flourish, to break free, yet to keep her close where I could guard her from the harsh world. You're not alone. But it's your journey to take. You can have it both ways, you don't have to choose one over the other. She looked up, eyes glistening with an indecipherable emotion. Suddenly, another voice echoed from inside the theatre, Marcos' unmistakable baritone slicing through the night stillness. Lila? Just let him take you. Can't you see it's what you've always wanted? I turned sharply to see Marco standing at the threshold, his expression flooding with a mix of anger and something I couldn't pinpoint. Was it jealousy? Vulnerability? Look, just go. Spare yourself the embarrassment of staying here and hiding in the shadows of everyone else's success. Why do you care? Lila shot back, as stunned as I was by Marcos' sudden burst of emotion. If I leave, are you going to be happy? Maybe I am sick of seeing your potential wasted. His words hung, stagnating like humid air. The only reason you're afraid to leap is that you know it'll expose your flaws. But if you want to fly, you have to risk crashing. An incredulous silence followed his declaration. I stepped forward, feeling the tension as thick as the night mist, ready to defend her, but Lila held her ground. The fire igniting in her eyes temporarily eclipsed uncertainty. And what makes you the expert on risk, Marco? She challenged, raising her chin. Was it sticking to safe choices that got you where you are today? For a heartbeat, everything felt suspended. And then, as if following a silent cue, Marco faltered, his bravado stripped raw. It was the first glimpse of a wound barely covered beneath layers of arrogance. Fine, he shot back, his voice low yet fiercely charged. You want me to just admit it? I'm terrified of competing with you. Lila? You make me feel small. An unexpected silence invaded the scene, crashing down like waves. I glanced between them, emotion swirling inexorably. This was deeper than we had ventured before. Finally, Lila took a step forward. You don't have to be afraid of me. But I can't stay. You don't see that, do you? The older man watched, perhaps recognizing the layers of our emotional turmoil, and gently urged again, take a chance, Lila. The music awaits, and it's calling only for you. She was caught in a throbbing silence, eyes darting between Marcos' fragmented expression and my lingering gaze. And then, with the world hanging in the balance, Lila instinctively clutched the man's outstretched hand, resolute yet unsure. My heart sank as possibilities dimmed, each heartbeat a reminder of what was slipping away. I wanted more time to speak, to express the fears that blanketed my heart. But just as Lila turned to take that step forward, an unanticipated clatter broke the silence. A small figure slipped from the shadows. A delicate girl I recognized from rehearsals, clutching a crumpled piece of paper, rushed toward us, her face a mix of panic and urgency. Lila? She cried out, breathless. Wait! You can't leave yet. I have something important to tell you. A chill encased the air, and all eyes swung toward the newcomer, the moment suspended once more. What revelation loomed on the horizon, and how would it shape the path we were about to tread? Lila's heart jolted at the sudden interruption, throwing her moment of decision into disarray. The girl, her name slipping from Lila's memory, stood before her, trembling, as if the weight of the world rested on her shoulder. The urgency in her eyes was palpable, a silent plea that cut through the tension unlike anything else. "What is it?" Lila asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The hand she had grasped from the older man slipped slightly as she turned her full attention to the girl. I felt a mix of hope and dread swelling within me, uncertain of where this unexpected moment might lead. Point 2 found this, the girl began, her voice cracking under the weight of her own anxiousness as she held out the crumpled paper. "It was tucked in the back of the grand piano. I thought it was discarded, but it looks important." Lila's face paled as she recognized the paper, her own handwritten notes, scribbled furiously in moments of inspiration. That's mine," she gasped, reaching for it with trembling fingers. The girl nodded fervently. "You have to read it. I think it's the last piece you wrote before everything changed." Unease gripped me as I watched the flicker of hope in Lila's eyes meld with confusion. The moment she had sought a chance to break free, a chance to be fully herself, hung on a precarious thread, teetering as she glanced from the older man back to Marco. Each face represented a divergent path, and the revelation teased its way into the mixture. "Wait," Marco said, stepping forward, his expression a strange blend of jealousy and curiosity. "This could be your ticket. Maybe your music is what you need, Lila." "Not running away." Lila dared to meet his gaze, uncertainty clouding her eyes. The moment felt crucial. The raw honesty that had surfaced between them was almost enough to tie them in a bond of shared vulnerability. Yet the idea of facing her fears with her own artistry felt like the weight of the world on her shoulders. "I want to hear it," the older man encouraged gently, tilting his head as if coaxing a flower to bloom. "It could open doors for you, Lila. You never know how it might resonate with others." Lila hesitated, a mere flicker of doubt crossing her face. "I don't know if it's ready," she murmured, glancing back down at the paper, which seemed to pulse with life. Memories of nights spent pouring her soul into melodies, of hearing the strings sing in harmonious dialogue, washed over her. As she took a deep breath, I could sense the battle raging within her. Here was an opportunity, raw and beautiful, yet it also held the potential for her hopes to crash. The girl stepped closer, her own expression filled with gentle encouragement. "If you don't do this now, you might regret it later," she said softly. "Sometimes we need to confront our fears to grow." Lila closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, envisioning the strands of her past intertwined with her dreams. Then, she unfolded the paper. A hush fell, thick and heavy, as the world around us receded into a distant echo. In that moment, the rush of emotion swelled, and I held my breath, awaiting what would pour forth. The notes she had written could change everything. The melody could be her liberation, her voice, the bridge between her and the world. But could she bear the weight of it? "Okay," she finally whispered, her voice breaking but resolute. "I'll play. But you all must come with Mestri close," she added. A gentle smile crept across my face at her words. It was a fragile yet powerful unity, a promise that her journey wouldn't be solitary. The older man nodded, and surprisingly, Marco echoed her sentiment, though I caught the flicker of rivalry in his eyes. With a mix of uncertainty and determination cradled in her hands, Lila walked toward the stage, where the dim spotlight waited to embrace her. The air held its breath as her footsteps echoed against the wooden floor, a haunting melody of anticipation. But just as she reached the edge of the stage, a frantic voice shattered the moment. "No! Lila, stop!" It was the girl again, rushing forward with eyes wide in disbelief. "The piano, it's broken. We can use it. There's a crack on the strings." Panic danced through the air like a living thing, suffocating the sense of hope we'd just begun to cradle. Lila turned to me, fear etching deeper lines on her face. "What do I do now?" As the reality of the moment descended, I felt my own helplessness overcome me. A crack in the piano was more than just a broken instrument, it felt like a fissure in every dream we had been nurturing. And then, Without even realizing it, I stepped closer, my voice barely a whisper. "Well, figure it out," I promised, gripping her hand tightly. "Well, find another way, Lila." But as the shadows flickered behind her, I caught a glimpse of Marcos' expression, and the secrets hidden within him flashed like lightning. Something was brewing beneath the surface, a truth that could shatter the small warmth we had wrapped ourselves in, and it terrified me, a new challenge that loomed ahead like a storm ready to break, yet Lila's path remained undetermined, waiting for a closer look that could change everything. Lila's breath caught in her throat, a tangible pang of disappointment twisting her insides as the harsh reality set in around the broken strings. The crack seemed to mock her dreams, whispering that vulnerability only invites failure. "What do you mean it's broken?" she stuttered, her resolve wavering. The girl's urgent face blurred as Lila's vision clouded with uncertainty, her pulse quickening, drowning out the muffled chaos of the audience murmuring beneath the dim lights. "I saw it when I was looking for sheet music for you. I thought it might be a hidden gem or something," but the girl's voice trembled, choked with disappointment as she toyed with the hem of her shirt, her hopeful glimmer extinguishing like a flame snuffed out by the storm. Marco stepped closer to them, his eyes darting from Lila to the stage, wrestling with his conflicting emotions. "Can we get someone to fix it? Like, hurry and grab a tuner or something?" His voice had an edge, but beneath it lay an uncertainty that mirrored Lila's pierced heart. The older man raised a hand, his gaze steadying everyone. "Fixing instruments is not that simple. It takes time, and it's not something you can rush." His deep voice met Lila's frantic eyes, each syllable a gentle weight reminding her just how precarious this moment was. Lila's shoulders slumped as she focused on the ground, gnashing her teeth against the bitter taste of lost opportunity. Just minutes before, she had felt on the brink of reclaiming herself. Now, it felt like all that was left was a gaping hole where potential had flourished moments earlier. "Maybe I could try singing instead," Lila murmured hesitantly, though the thought of her voice alone trembling through the space felt like stepping onto a tightrope without a safety net. The girl's eyes widened at the idea. "That could work. You could reach so many people with your voice." But Marcos' frustrated sigh escaped him, cutting through the fragile hope that hung in the air. "It's not the same. Without the piano, it's just not whole." He shoved a hand through his hair, irritation sparking in his eyes. "You need the music you wrote, Lila. It's part of you." Anguish flooded Lila's chest, the rawness of Marcos' words cutting deeper than any knife. She could not bend to the confines of his vision, she had to claim her identity, unquenchable even without the piano. Yet, the deeper, gnawing fear gnawed at her heart that whispered, "What if they are right? What if I can't do this without it?" The girl, sensing Lila's hesitation, stepped forward. "You said it's part of you, right? So play it in your heart. Let it flow with your voice. We're here, Lila. We're with you." She reached out, intertwining her fingers with Lila's, a simple build of connection that felt woven with both the burden of fear and light of trust. Lila blinked, watching the girl. There was a strength in her tiny frame, an honesty that urged her forward. Perhaps it was the very essence of humanity that wrapped around her, gently pushing her toward the edge of her fears. Before she could second-guess herself again, she found her feet moving, guided by instinct toward the center of the stage, taking gentle breaths to soothe the tempest raging inside her. "Okay," she whispered more boldly, the words slipping through her lips with newfound clarity. As she stood before the audience, the dim light created an ethereal glow around her, reminiscent of a fragile flower nudging its way through cracks in the pavement. She felt exposed, her heart beating erratically in her chest, but she closed her eyes briefly, flooding her mind with the notes of her song, anchored in memories. Just then, a distant sound fluttered into the theater, a gust of wind sweeping through the cracked window, a reminder of the world outside that continued to spin no matter her fears. And deep within her, a quiet melody began to stir, born from recollections both old and vivid. Just as she opened her mouth to sing, a commotion jolted through the back of the room, someone bursting through the door with frantic urgency. The figure's brow was furrowed, smeared with apprehension, as if they were racing against time itself. "Lila? Wait!" the person shouted, voice piercing through every layer of anticipation. It was Robert, her father, holding a violin that gleamed like a beacon in the dim light, hope and desperation written in every line of his face. "I found this," He gasped, eyes locking onto hers. "I thought you might need it. It was your mother's." The weight of his words settled heavily in the air, mingling confusion with a rush of hope. Lila stared at the instrument, memories flooding back, her mother's gentle hands teaching her how to pull life from strings, the echoes of laughter combined with music swirling like a warm embrace. Is this mine? Lila stammered, the uncanny familiarity sending tremors through her chest into her fingertips. "Yes. It's your legacy." He took a step closer, encouraging her to reclaim her past and weave it into her present. But before she could grasp the momentum brewing within her soul, a wave of uncertainty crashed hard once more. What if she could truly create magic with the violin but lose the connection to her own power as her voice faded into the background? Just as she reached for the violin, flashes of lightning surged outside the windows, a storm brewing at the horizon. The power flickered for a moment, plunging the room into darkness before bursting to life again, compelling shadows dancing around the uncertain faces of those gathered. Lila stood there, torn at the precipice of realization, pulled between her past and the burgeoning dreams swirling ahead. Would the legacy she was meant to reclaim bind her or free her? The air hummed with untold possibilities, the next moment hanging precariously, a question mark waiting to unravel her journey. And as she held the violin, poised between two worlds, Lila faced the truth. What if reclaiming one meant sacrificing the other? Lila clutched the violin, its polished wood warm against her cold fingers, as something within her began to unravel. The entire theater seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with palpable anticipation, mirroring the tumult swirling inside her mind. She could feel the eyes of the audience piercing her skin, expectations hanging in the balance like the flickering lights overhead. What if I can't do it? She breathed to herself, as her soul wrestled with the shadows of her doubt. Her heart ached with memories of her mother, the mentor she had counted on, who had once breathed life into passages of music. Would she be letting go of those memories if she chose her voice over the strings? The conflict weighed heavily on her chest, debating whether she could embody both legacies or if embracing one would eclipse the dimming light of the other. "Please, Lila," Robert implored, his gaze intense and unwavering. "Your mother believed in you. She always believed in the beauty of your voice and the strength of your spirit. The violin is a part of that, but so is your own heart. Together, they can soar." But the storm outside mirrored the storm within, dark clouds gathering as thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, an equal harbinger of turmoil and raw possibility. It was as though nature itself was reflecting her chaotic uncertainty. A hesitant smile flickered on Lila's face, ignited by her father's faith, even amidst her fear. "You really think I can?" "Yes," he urged, eyes glistening with fluids of earnestness. "You have the power to create something no one else can. Let both the violin and your voice tell your story." It wasn't just the wooden instrument in her hands that drew her, it was the inheritance of her mother's spirit, the echoes of guidance given through nurturing hands, memories drenched in warmth. Yet, standing before her father, she couldn't shake the suffocating fear of losing herself in a talent that felt too entrenched in the past. While the audience waited in silence, each heartbeat seemed to demand a decision from her. Lila inhaled deeply, calling on all the whispered songs that once filled her dreams, each note bursting to life as though waiting to be set free. And as the symphony of emotions unfolded, she realized she was at a crossroads. The choice was both daunting and liberating. With trembling fingers, she shifted the violin slightly, her body moving instinctively to the rhythm that began to echo from distant memories. A vibration surged through her, inching closer to an ethereal wholeness she had long believed lost. And yet, Marco stepped forward, his voice sharp yet softened by concern. "Lila, if you play the violin, what about the music you wrote for the piano? You'll miss the chance to share it all." The voice of reason tethered her again, like a persistent reminder that choices ripple out, reflecting consequences she couldn't foresee. Lila swallowed, grappling with the fear that mixing her legacy with her own creativity could dilute who she was, as if one note would drown out the other. But then she recalled the countless times her mother had fostered her love for music, each practice session stirred by laughter and joy, not confinement. This was her moment to redefine those echoes. Their message need not fade away in the sound of the strings. Maybe, she started, intertwining her voice with the thoughts meshing within her mind, maybe I can do both, create a new song. Stealing a glance back at the audience, she saw the girl who had believed in her from the beginning, eyes sparkling as though igniting the very existence of hope within Lila. The crowd was leaning in, patient, yearning, like a sea awaiting the swell of a wave, longing for the music that would wash over them. A flickering light momentarily bathed Lila in brightness before cast into shadow again, just enough to remind her that in the storm before, during, and after each performance, each note, and every breath mattered profoundly. It was a lifeline, neither losing her voice nor her past, a blurry space waiting to crystallize into something entirely her own. With unexpected resolve, she positioned herself, raising the violin to her shoulder and opening her mouth as she began. The first note spilled forth, intertwining with her voice, branching into a new melody that borrowed from both her mother's teachings and her own heartfelt truths. It was beautiful, it was heartbreakingly raw. If the world tilted on its axis, Lila danced between the memories stitched within her late mother's legacy and her present identity, seeking harmony while embracing the fragments of her soul in one moment. The first swell of her song wrapped around everyone, pulling them into the depths of her heart and leaving their breath suspended. But just as the music began to climb higher, promising a release of pent-up emotion, a clap of thunder echoed like a fierce rebuke, shaking the fragile stillness. The sound was eclipsed by the crescendo of her song, yet Lila couldn't ignore the shudder of unease rippling in the air. The lights flickered again, plunging the theater into darkness just as she opened her eyes, feeling every fiber of her being tingle with realization shadows had indeed blurred the lines of who she was meant to be. And then it emerged, not just light and shadow, but another revelation. Over the distant roar of thunder, a voice rose, a voice that was achingly familiar and yet hauntingly foreign, a melody that weaved through the storm, echoing down hallways of memory. Lila, please remember me, she faltered mid-song, heart catching in her throat, a surge of recognition igniting fear after dread. It was as if the storm had drawn something hidden from the depths of her past, pulling a thread that could unravel everything she had just begun to stitch together. Could she possibly take the plunge into true vulnerability now, or would the revelation tear her from her newfound path? The lingering note barely escaped her lips as her fragile world trembled, teetering on the edge between creative birth and unearthing a truth too big for her young heart to bear. Lila stood on the precipice of the stage, a mere shadow of the vibrant performance just moments ago. The profound softness of the voice that had emerged through the storm continued to echo within her, swirling memories and emotions that threatened to topple her resolve. What was meant to be a reclamation of her identity and artistry suddenly darkened with confusion. The audience, once eager and patient, shifted restlessly in their seats, caught in the tense arrest of a moment that teetered between magic and calamity. In the stillness after the thunderclap, Lila felt the world contracting around her, filled with her mother's familiar presence mixed with something else, something spectral yet tangible. Lila, please remember me. The voice resonated like distant chimes, sweet yet tinged with sorrow, a melody that tugged at the threads of her heart. Stepping away from the spotlight, she barely registered Robert's concerned gaze, the intense worry on Marcos' face. All she could feel was the overwhelming tide of emotion swell within her, a tsunami threatening to wash away the edifice she had painstakingly begun to build upon the remnants of her mother's legacy. With every warble of her heart, she searched for that voice again, whispering through the tempest. It sent shards of fear spiraling in her chest, for it carried with it the weight of a reality she thought she'd buried. Fear gnawed like a wretched creature. What if this voice demanded truths she wasn't ready to face? What if it was a memory coaxing her back into a past that did not yield solace? Lila. Marcus' voice broke through her reverie, urging her to return to the performance. You have to keep playing. Don't let it derail you. Remember your story. Her fingers trembled on the violin strings, recalling the warmth of the wood beneath her touch, the way her mother had only ever seen hope in her music. But each pluck and stroke echoed back the name she had clung to in silence, her mother, Elena. Like a beacon from the tumult, each note held a thread of their past, begging to intertwine with the melodies of her present. Suddenly, the shadows of the theater seemed to shift, shapes emerging from the darkness like phantoms. Faces materialized, one she recognized from her memories, friends, mentors, and even that girl with sparkling eyes who had once whispered encouragement as a child by the old oak tree. Each face quieted the cacophony, drawing forth a delicate hush as they glimmered in the muted light. An unexpected warmth washed over her, fragile yet undeniable, urging her to embrace both the past and the present. Slowly, she found her breath, filling her lungs with the ache of longing and light. Striking the strings once more, she drew a soft melody that flickered like a candle, fragile yet fierce. I am here, Lila breathed into the oblivion, the voice echoing through her, and I will remember you. As she poured her essence into the music, the piece morphing unshackled by grief, threads began to weave anew. It was messy at first, tangled yet full of promise, a bridge spanned with each note, every chord reverberating with the strength of a blooming flower emerging from a crackpot. Around her, the audience surrendered to her song, the murmurs shifting from uneasy anticipation to captured disbelief. The haunting familiarity of the voice resonated in her performance, a dance of grief and joy, loss and love, a musical narrative that transcended the boundaries of what she thought had been possible. But just as she began to dissolve the tension within her into raw creation, a flash of lightning illuminated the theater like a spotlight, revealing a face in the shadows. A figure stood just outside the dim light, a silhouette carved from the remnants of both her past and an unfamiliar future. Lila, the familiar voice called out soft, assuring, yet shadowed by an unnameable weight. It was her mother's tone, but layered with an essence she didn't recognize, the melody interlaced with sorrow. I watched you closely, but you need to know. The crescendo of her music fractured momentarily, her heart racing as curiosity collided with fear, a haunting echo intertwined with wonder. Lila's fingers faltered, searching for certainty but instead grasping at the frayed edges of her resolve. Who are you? It was a whisper, scared and defiant all at once. Her gaze met the figure, piercing through the darkness into the depths of half-remembered dreams and long-held fears. As the words escaped her lips, the air thickened with an unsettling promise, a revelation waiting to spill forth, but what she saw wrapped in the flickering shadows was an old friend, a half-spoken confession that could shatter the very fabric of her world. And beneath it all, echoed the question lingering unanswerable in the folds of liminal space: who were they to each other now? With the thunder rumbling on the horizon, Lila felt the ground undulating beneath her feet, knowing the time to choose was slipping razor-thin between her fingers. But would she be brave enough to unravel the truth, the light, and the darkness all at once? As Lila steadied herself, the world around her blurred into a haze, the stage morphing into a vast ocean, waves crashing within that recalcitrant heart of hers. The music faded into a mere thrum, her heartbeat echoing against the hollowed chambers of her chest. Before her stood not only a ghost but the embodiment of a past constructed on whispers and regrets. The figure in the shadows, standing beneath the bright light's edge, held the secret she had tried to forget. Lila, it repeated, the voice quivering like the strings of her violin, poised yet vulnerable. In that instant, every moment of her childhood flooded back, the smell of her mother's perfume, the burden of unspoken words after the curtains had closed, the echo of an empty house concealing all the unsaid. Why now? Lila's voice barely broke the silence, a mixture of defiance and desperation. It was a question that demanded not just an answer, but the acknowledgement of everything that had happened, of the fissures carved deep by time and memory. The figure took a hesitant step forward, allowing the light to cascade over familiar features. It was Lena, her childhood friend, the one who had left town suddenly, without a word, disappeared during Lila's most vulnerable summer. Lila remembered the last time they'd met, the way Lena had gazed at her, tears pooling in her wide eyes. Now, here they stood, an unfurling tapestry of unshared experiences between darkened threads. I didn't know how to come back, Lena murmured, her voice scarcely above a whisper, yet it sliced through the air with the sharpness of truth. Not after everything that happened. I thought if I stayed away long enough, the dust would settle, and I could slip back into your world as if nothing had changed. Lila felt a pang of betrayal, a knot tightening in her throat. You left me, she replied, aching to convey the weight of abandonment, of heartbreak. You left me to carry the pieces alone, to figure out this world without you or your music. I know, Lena breathed, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. And I'm so sorry. But I'm here now, Lila, because I've been following you. I might not have been there in person, but your music was my lifeline through everything. Your mother, her voice cracked under the strain of mentioning Elena, a name that painted their shared history in both brilliant and muted hues. I hoped one day I could tell you what really happened. What happened? Lila's breath caught, the weight of the moment so potent that even the stage lights felt dimmer, trembling under the gravity of the reveal nestled on the precipice between them. You deserve to know. Lena hesitated, her mouth opening and closing as if dancing between truths. Each silent beat heightened Lila's anticipation, sketching a multitude of narratives behind Lena's quivering facade. Elena wasn't just your mother, Lila. She was mine too, by blood, by passion. She was part of a life that a sharp intake of breath shattered the air, Lila's world collapsing around her at the mere suggestion of uncharted territory. Every music lesson, every time Elena brushed her hair back from her face, every tender moment she had clung to reshaped in an instant. The bond she had cherished became indefinable. Down came the walls built with the bricks of understanding and permanence. No, Lila whispered, clutching the violin tightly, the familiar weight now becoming a tangible anchor, an unstable rock in a tide threatening to sweep her breath away. That's not possible. You can't just, Lila, please. Lena's voice rose in desperation, breaking the spell around them. It's why I left. I had to protect you from the truth, but you must know. You must know your mother was running from something to a legacy that could taint our music, our lives. I swear it was to keep you safe. Safety, Lila thought bitterly. All the while thinking she craved freedom, she had been trapped in a cage woven from love and loss. Her mother's secret seemed to build a prison around her heart, each question, an unspoken word pressing upon her soul. But why now? Lila implored, her voice wavering. Why? Come back when I'm finally trying to forge my path, because I was terrified you'd find out another way, Lena pleaded, stepping closer, risking the distance that had defined their lives. I thought I had lost you forever. When I heard your performance tonight, it awakened something profound within me. I thought, if I remain quiet, my truth will spare you, but maybe it's worse to stay silent, she confessed, tears spilling over. Your music deserves the whole truth, and suddenly the weight of the truth, once buried deep, began to expose itself. Memories of a shared childhood, laughter, and moments of joy mingled with chaos and shadows, threatening to crack the facade of reassurance Lila had built around herself. As Lila opened her mouth to respond, the lights flickered ominously, casting them into another moment of dark tension. A shudder swept through the theater, a collective breath held among the audience as though they, too, anticipated the storm lurking just beyond this fragile stage. The truth will break us, Lila, Lena warned, her voice quaking as she extended a hand towards the stage, a bridge in desperate need of crossing. But it can also free us. Caught in a tempest of confusion, pain, and the tender thread of hope that whispered of a future beyond hurt, Lila was torn between the warm embrace of familiarity and the chilling winds of uncertainty. Should she leap into the unknown with Lena's hand outstretched to embrace a truth that had threatened to unravel her? And then came the sound. A single note began to swell from the heart of her violin, a resonant cry harmonizing with her soul, a heartbeat syncing with the storm that raged within her. As if drawn by an unseen tether, the audience leaned forward, cradling the tension in their chests, desperate for the release that lingered just beyond the cusp of understanding, unaware that in this moment, they were witnesses to the unraveling of a lifetime. Would Lila grasp Lena's hand and embody the truth, come what may, or would she cling to the remnants of a facade built amid the shadows of uncertainty? As the night deepened around them, the decision waited, suspended, an emotional cliffhanger poised on the verge of revelation. The curved lines of Lila's mouth trembled as the note from her violin hung precariously in the air, the tension palpable. For all its beauty, the sound felt like a fragile thing, ready to shatter under the weight of unspooled truths and darkened memories. She clutched her instrument, afraid that if she let go, if she truly reached for Lena's hand, everything she had built, the very essence of who she was, might collapse into a cascade of chaos. Lena stood before her, raw and exposed, her vulnerability echoed in the glisten of her eyes. You can control the narrative, Lila. We can rewrite our story together. A flicker of hope ignited within Lila's heart. Together? The idea blossomed like wildflowers in a desolate field, fragrant and enticing yet fragile against the harsh reality of their shared past. But the reminder of abandonment stung sharper than the bow on strings, each memory a jagged note wandering astray. Before she could speak, the lights flickered again, this time dimming further. The audience gasped in unison. It felt like a collective heartbeat, a mass of bodies synchronizing with the tumult in Lila's soul. Her mind wrestled with Lena's confession, the possibility of a truth she had long feared, one that threatened to expand or collapse her world. Lena, it can't be that simple, she finally whispered, the music fading as the air thickened. You don't know what this could mean for us. It could unravel everything. I thought I understood my motherly life. And now, you're asking me to accept that you've been part of it in a way I never knew. I know, Lena replied softly, her hand trembling as it hovered just above the stage, too hesitant to fully bridge the gap between their pasts and their uncertain future. But isn't knowing better than living in silence? We're both here, at this moment. Lila, please, talk to me. You're not alone anymore. Lila's heart ached at the sincerity in Lena's voice, perhaps even more than the discovery of shared blood. She felt the weight of her mother's secret sink heavily into her chest, pulling at her spirit like an anchor dragging beneath turbulent ocean waves. But beneath that weight, she felt the faintest flicker of a yearning for connection, something alive that had been buried under years of sorrow and longing. Taking a deep breath, she looked into Lena's eyes, seeing the reflection of her own hurt and confusion mirrored back. What if bringing these truths to light only breaks us apart again? The fear wrapped tightly around her like a serpent, each word laced with doubt. Then we'll find a way to stitch the pieces back together, Lena replied, vulnerability infusing her voice. You and I, we've always been stronger than the struggles that sought to tear us apart. It was then that Lila felt a quiet whisper of resolve blossoming within her heart. She offered a tentative nod, willing to at least step onto the bridge that Lena extended, the bridge into their shared legacy that had been hidden beneath layers of silence and hurt. In that moment, before she could change her mind, Lila reached out and clasped Lena's hand. The touch ignited fireworks of emotion, memories racing through her as if the world around them had melted away into nothingness. A single tear slid down Lena's cheek, and Lila felt her own heart swell with bittersweet nostalgia as old memories piled onto this new reality. But before they could fully recognize what they'd stepped into, the lights flickered ominously again, plunging the theater into darkness intermittently with flashes of light. A cacophony of murmurs erupted from the crowd, a palpable anxiety settling over the audience at the sudden instability of their surroundings. Lila! A voice shouted from the back of the dimly lit space, cutting through the chaos. Lila, you have to get out of there. Startled, Lila turned away from Lena, her heart palpitating in anxious rhythm. It was Ben, her longtime manager, his face alight with urgency. The roof! There's something wrong with the rigging. You need to move. Now! The world spun around Lila, the fragile connection with Lena trembling on the brink of a cataclysm. Fear gripped her, an instinctual desperation igniting as she considered the ramifications of the situation unfolding before them. Returning her gaze to Lena, the moment stretched between them, their fingers still entwined, their shared story now a question poised to be answered. But at what cost? With adrenaline surging, Lila tore herself away, breaking their connection in a frantic rush to escape the unknown. As she dashed toward the backstage, Lena's voice echoed behind her, raw with emotion, Lila! Don't forget the truth. The seconds felt like an eternity as she raced against time, her heart pounding against the backdrop of chaotic cries and collapsing shadows. But in that moment, with uncertainty stealing breath from her lungs, she realized that the truth, like the music she had poured every ounce of herself into, could no longer be ignored. And just as she crossed the threshold of safety into the wings, a thunderous crash echoed, sending a shiver down her spine. The stage lights dimmed to an alarming flicker before plunging into darkness altogether. In that visceral silence, Lila felt the churning shadows closing in, and even though she had momentarily escaped the tangible threat, she couldn't shake the embrace of the emotional chaos that awaited her. Lost amid the swirling uncertainty of her life and now perhaps the battle for the stage itself, Lila stood on the precipice of the unknown, torn between the life she had once known, the truth she was only beginning to grasp, and the unforeseen dangers lurking just beyond the light. I stood in the wooden embrace of the backstage, the muffled thrum of chaos filtering through the heavy curtain that hung before me, binding every ounce of my past and future in an unbearable tension. The stage lights flickered ominously, a heartbeat pulsating in earnest through the shadows, reminders of the storm that raged both inside and outside. With every second that passed, my heart echoed the rapid beats of a drum, flinging arguments and thoughts like wayward stars into the dark expanse. I could still hear Lena's voice echoing behind me, the warmth of our shared truth clashing against the overwhelming weight of all that had been left unspoken. The truth! I couldn't simply forget it. I could scarcely breathe without it now. The audience, the crinkled edges of the paper that held my untold melodies, and the feeling of 100 expectant eyes suddenly felt suffocating. I recalled my father's kind face urging me forward, Marcus' sharp words igniting embers of genuine pain rather than envy. Everyone wanted me to perform, but what was left to perform if the very things intertwined with my identity remained unresolved? And then it struck me like a lightning bolt. I wasn't just standing at the edge of a stage, I was on the brink of a defining moment, a choice that would amplify or destroy everything I had built, everything I hoped to discover. The fragments of the word truth hovered before me, needing to coalesce into something tangible, something beautiful. Guilt and anger entwined themselves within me, making it almost impossible to grasp who I was, yet with every heartbeat, a clarion call surged from deep within, growing louder than any doubt that had clouded my soul. I could feel my mother alongside me, an encouraging whisper urging me to reclaim the essence of music that lived in every fiber of my being. No longer half measures for a girl caged by secrets. This was my chance to reclaim my voice. The stillness that had enveloped me shattered like glass, and without even processing the decision, I burst back onto the stage. The lights flickered back into life, and the audience's hushed gasp mingled with the soft patter of raindrops outside, creating a strange harmony that resonated through the back of my thoughts. Lena stood just outside the light, her face quivering with uncertainty, yet beneath the fear, an unfiltered hope shone. "Lila?" she called, her voice tinged with both longing and anxiety. In that moment, I saw vividly the girl I had known, the sister who had vanished in silence, and a fierce flame ignited within my chest. "Lena!" I shouted back, the echo of my voice cascading through the thin air between us. "We have to do this together." With that, I stepped forward, claiming both the violin and the truth that entwined itself through every note I would play. Hand in hand, we'd face the storm, one fragile melody at a time. I began to weave. The bow found the strings, and a powerful crescendo surged forth, overflowing with every piece of grief and elation buried beneath layers of doubt. Each note wrapped itself around us like a protective hug, a promise that we would not allow our past to define us, but instead, we would meld it with our present, forging a meaning that transcended the whispers and screams of abandonment. Lena stepped closer, her own hand finding its purpose, lifting her voice into the arms of the melody, unlocking the music we had hidden all those years, and, for the first time, it felt whole. It was as if our shared connection was a bridge over troubled waters, guiding us toward a horizon swathed in the gentle hues of possibility. Together, we began to play, truth swirling around us, fingers dancing like sunlight on water. The haunting ideas that had long weighed on us transformed into a tapestry of sound, rich with loss yet bursting with promise. Each note resonated with the shadow of my mother, a guardian spirit ushering us forward, and in that moment, the audience wasn't merely an audience but my family. It was every tear shed, every note whispered in solitude, every tap of a foot yearning for connection. With each rising wave of sound, it felt as though we were cutting away from the past's grip. Each crescendo wove deeper into our hearts until both of us stood at the precipice together, embracing the uncertainty of what lay ahead. I glanced momentarily at Lena, her eyes shimmering with strength, and I found myself aching to speak, to acknowledge the scars we had both silently carried. But the music knew what my heart ached to say. The truth spilled from the depths of my soul, connecting us in a way that no words could ever articulate. It became our redemption song, our song of healing, loss, and ultimately, acceptance. As I played, the room transformed, illuminating faces illuminated by the glow of shared understanding, smiles blooming where shadows once lingered. It wasn't merely our music they were witnessing, it was a revelation that echoed through the very essence of their being. It was the essence of soul, the embodiment of every struggle, every journey throughout our lives, and as the final notes shimmered into silence, something profound surged through the stillness left in the wake of our performance, a gentle embrace of unity, kindred spirits wrapped around one another, the understanding of shared love and loss ever more interwoven. I took a deep breath, looking out to see tears trailing down cheeks, tears not of sorrow but of beauty witnessed. The applause erupted, a thunderous wave wrapping around us as the flickering light sparkled with the remnants of the storm. In this final moment of vulnerability, I stood hand in hand with Lena, transformed together, free to pursue our art while holding our truths close, and deep within my heart echoed the final realization: the scars did not hinder my journey but rather shaped me. The melody of my life, cherished and heartbreaking, molded into a symphony that would carry me far beyond this theater, each note a promise of a future's yet to be written. "Together is where the beauty lies," I whispered, catching her gaze, and in that simple statement, I felt the weight of the world lift from my shoulders, leaving only sheer possibility in its wake. And somewhere, amidst the harmony, I realized that true music is born from embracing every part of our story, threading together love and loss into an intricate design that nobody could take away from USA legacy that would echo through time.